Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of From the Heart. I'm host Chloe Trca, and this is a podcast where we talk all things health, wellness, mindset, fitness, business, anything that goes on in my life on a day-to-day basis. I like to reflect on, learn from, and then share to you guys in a podcast. And this week I'm on freaking fire. This is going to be a good episode. I have all the notes down. And this is something I am walking through right now, but I am watching it transform my life. And I think it's the perfect time to talk about this because we're almost 3 weeks into the new year. We've been working towards our goals. We've been making changes, adaptations, but I'm sure we've all felt a little bit of resistance in the goals, realizing, okay, maybe this is going to take more effort than we thought. Maybe this one's a little easier. Maybe actually I want more. I want to, reevaluate my goals, and I think I can push harder. I can push further. Or there's like a little voice in the back of your head that, is getting to you. Like, you can achieve these things, but something's stopping you. That is what this episode is going to help you work through, crack, and understand. So a lot of this episode is actually based from this book. It's called Get Out of Your Head by Jenny Allen. I would love to have her on my podcast. That is a goal one day, to have someone to her stature sitting across from me and I could pick her brain. But, we're just not there yet, and that's okay. God's will, one day we will get there. But for now, I do still have the ability to read the book and learn from it and apply it. And I want to share with you guys some tips and tricks I've learned and how you guys can learn to get out of your head, like she says, because the title of this episode is essentially, your mind is getting in the way. That's what's getting in the way between you and achieving your goals and achieving that dream life that you have, the things that you've been envisioning and praying for, the things God is calling you to be. Your head is getting in the way. If you feel like you have it so hard and heavy on your heart, and you want to take the action steps, the action steps to take, but something in your mind, something is stopping you, it's your mind. And the beauty in it and the blessing is we have the ability to change that and fix that and still get out of our head, because let me tell you, it's life-changing. I think the voices in our head are something we all struggle with on a day-to-day basis. There's some stats in here that will blow your mind. I'm just going to get right in because I have a ton of stuff to talk about and go over. And I think get your notepads out. If you're driving, don't do that, but type some notes on your phone. Buy this book. Honestly, it is life-changing. It's a Christian perspective, but I really just pulled a lot of the basic information from this because I could go into a whole nother episode and rabbit hole on the Christian perspective of this, but it applies regardless. This stuff is good. This stuff is really, really good. And I've just noticed how much I'm in my own head. And I'm a person who I think I have control over my thoughts. I'm pretty self-aware, but I still struggle with these things on a very heavy level. Everybody does. Every successful person I know has some sort of self-doubt, self-limiting beliefs. There's something in their head that's holding them back, either in relationships, in business, in success, in self-love, and just, it's crazy how much the mind can be debilitating, or it can be like a rocket forward, and it can just absolutely throw you into your dream life with like a flip of a switch. It's genuinely that simple, but it's so hard to do, but it's a simple thing to do, if that makes sense. Just because something's simple doesn't mean it's easy, but let's just get into it, okay? Essentially, you guys, what we think shapes our lives. Anything that we think of and anything that runs through our head on a day-to-day basis is shaping our lives. 75 to 98% of mental, physical, and behavioral illnesses come from one's thoughts. That's straight from the book. I'm going to read that again because that is like astonishing, astounding. I don't even know the right word for that, but that blows my mind. 75 to 98%. So 3/4 to practically 100% of every single thing, mental, physical, or behavioral illness related, is coming from one of our thoughts. That's insane. Do you know how many different physical, behavioral, and mental illnesses that we have? Oh my gosh. Everyone, I feel like, struggles with one or all three. And the fact that they come from our thoughts, that's crazy. Most of them do. Almost 3/4 to 100% of them do. And it is crazy because they come from our thoughts. We also have the power to heal ourselves based on our perspectives and our thoughts. And a bit of a testimony to this is my boyfriend Kyler. He won't mind if I share this because I think I might have a little bit before, but a few years ago, probably 4 years ago, he was diagnosed with Crohn's and colitis, and he has a huge, he doesn't like the word like diagnosis, because essentially a diagnosis is just a sum of symptoms. If you have this, this, and this, then you ultimately have this disease. And once you get a diagnosis, it can be really heavy and really hard on your mental, because then you start to attach to that, you claim to that, it becomes part of you and your identity, when ultimately it's just a compilation of symptoms, and they are, for the most part, treatable. And the fact that they're treatable through perspective and mindsets and mental switches that you can make is like, what? Like, the power in that, you guys, is in freaking sane. Okay. So essentially what Kyler did, you guys, is he struggled with this diagnosis per se, for a while. He was very sick, like if he wouldn't have gotten better, I don't know if he would still be here with us. And he says that, like, I didn't know him at this time, but he says this, and he was essentially dwindling away, which is, I just can't even imagine. Like, he's the most like vibrant, lively human being ever. And to think that he was any different is just, it's sad to think about. But I'm sure all of you guys know someone in your life, or maybe it's yourself, who is walking through this, or who has walked through this, or maybe this is preparing you to help guide someone through this in the future. But what ultimately helped him and healed him, you guys, he poured so much research into this. He went and saw so many doctors. He tried so many holistic things. He joined a literal group for Crohn's and colitis, and this is what really switched it for him, because the coaches tapped into the mental side of the disease. And he would start every single day, and he would envision himself being healthy and vibrant and lively and doing the things he used to do and wants to do again, and being just strong, being able to eat the foods. And you guys, it cured him. He got healthy. He doesn't deal with any of those symptoms anymore. Does he have a sensitive stomach if he doesn't eat the right foods? Yes. But he still enjoys foods that once he never thought he would eat again, because he doesn't want the food to have like a power over him per se. He doesn't want to like fear of food, because he's like, once I could never eat this, I don't want it to have power over me again. And he's like, ultimately, because he talks to me about this a lot, like when my stomach's upset, he's like, is it because you think your stomach's upset? And I was like, well, me and Brussels sprouts don't usually agree, but he's like, maybe because you always assume they're not going to agree with you, they don't. And I was like, dang. So little things like that, just check in and be like, okay, am I always assuming the worst? And am I kind of, because your mind has the power to literally like feel things and experience like pain, because you assume it's going to cause pain. Like, you could probably avoid a lot of pain by not assuming that it's going to result in that. And that even goes for like heartbreak in relationships and breaking up with someone. Sometimes we're often scared to end a relationship because we fear we're going to be alone. We fear we're going to be in pain and be sad and be scared alone. When in reality, maybe you get out of the relationship and you have the chains are off of you. You have your confidence back. You have your life back. You have your vibrant glow back. You have more time to pour into yourself and pour into things that you care about and your passions and your friends. And it opens more opportunity for more new friends. And those all in turn actually fill up your cup more, and you're happier than you've ever been. Like, have that optimistic perspective, because a pessimistic perspective can be so harmful. Wow, that wasn't even in my notes, you guys. That was me just rocking and rolling through this, but it's so true. Just like hearing Kyler, I wish I could have Kyler talk about this, and maybe I'll have him on my podcast one day to share his story, because it's mind-blowing, but it's just a testament of the power of your mind, the power of your thoughts, envisioning and praying for things that you want and what you expect out of your life, and essentially like convincing yourself that it will become. People always say when you want to become something, or you have like a goal, like start acting like that person, start envisioning and start seeing yourself as that person. Kyler speaks life over himself all the time, and truth of life over himself all the time. If he wants to get a deal for work, he's like, I already got it. And it was better than I could even imagine. I made more money on it, and I was then in turn able to, donate more money to the church, or do this and do that. And he starts envisioning all of these things that he can do once because he already has it. And I think that's huge, because the mind is so powerful. It will in turn pretty much find a way to fulfill that. And again, it's scary because if you do it backwards, your mind will also do that. If he's like, I'm not going to get this deal. I haven't gotten a deal in a while. Like, I never get deals. Something always happens. It's going to be less than I even want. That's going to happen. So be so powerful of the words you speak. I'm even doing this with the TikTok ban, you guys. Everyone's like, TikTok's going to get banned. And I'm like, I don't think it is. I think TikTok will be here Monday. I think we're going to be okay. And I'm not worrying about it because I'm not letting that power affect me and affect my mood and create fear and worry and start idolizing TikTok and idolizing the people who have control over TikTok. Like, I'm not letting that control my life. And I'm speaking into existence that TikTok will be here and it will be fine. And some things may change, but that's okay. I trust in the Lord's plan, and ultimately, however it works out, it will work out. And everyone's gonna be okay. We're all experiencing this, but freaking out, panicking, and stressing about it isn't gonna help the situation. And assuming the worst and assuming that it's gonna go away is probably going to cause that to happen. So I think if we all kind of band together and be like, this isn't going to happen, it's not going to happen. Anyway, that's what I'm telling myself. The next point is, this is really interesting. Emotion to a thought. So emotion produces a thought, and then a thought produces behavior. And then a behavior affects the relationship of whatever you're thinking about. So this could be your relationship with food. This could be your relationship with a person. This could be your relationship with the hobby. This could be your relationship with that piece of clothes. Like, whatever the thought is like about, whatever the emotion is driven from, that's in turn, that relationship will be affected. So let me back up and say this again. An emotion from something in turn causes a thought and creates a thought. That thought creates a behavior, and then those behaviors create a relationship with that thing. So if you're feeling negative emotions about one thing, it's gonna shift your thoughts, and it's gonna shift how you perceive whatever this is. And then when you're looking at this, it's gonna change your behavior around it. If it's a bad experience, you're probably gonna be standoffish. You're probably gonna be closed off. You're probably gonna fear this thing. If it's a great experience, you're gonna be running towards it. You're gonna be joyful. You're gonna be excited. You're gonna be lit up when this thing comes around. In turn, that's gonna affect the relationship. So if it is something you're fearing, it's gonna be a negative relationship. You're gonna be closed off. You're gonna avoid it. You're gonna have bad things to say about it. And instinctually, you'll probably get bad feelings. And again, if it's a great thing, that relationship's going to be great. It's going to be a strong relationship. It's going to be a healthy relationship. It's going to be a vibrant, lively relationship. And then from then creates a consequence. So whatever the relationship is, if it's good or bad, it's going to create a consequence, good or bad. And so that's like the end result. So the end result of something essentially begins with the emotion that we like experience right away. First, I think that's probably why first impressions are so huge, is because we create an emotion instantly when we meet someone. If it's good or bad, we latch on to that emotion that we feel, because feelings are so powerful. They go through our entire body. We latch onto that emotion, and that in turn creates a thought. And so then we're having thoughts about this person, okay? Is it good or bad? And then that thought's gonna create a behavior. How am I gonna act around them? How are they gonna act? How are they acting around me? Am I gonna be excited to be around this person? Am I going to be closed off and standoffish? Am I going to want to be around this person? Am I not? And then that in turn creates the relationship. Is this going to be a close relationship? Is this going to be a distant relationship? Is this going to be a healthy relationship? Is this going to be a toxic friendship relationship? And then that forms the consequence. Is this first impression going to be my new best friend? Or is this someone I never speak to again? Is this going to be just a guy friend that I go to? Or is this going to be my future boyfriend, husband? All of these things, it's a pattern. It's a pattern. So it's really important to learn to recognize these patterns, because it can unfold and kind of help predict the end result. If you want a result, start being in tune with the emotions, because you can change your emotion. You have the power to do that. And oftentimes, again, I don't want to get too faithful in this podcast, because that's really not what it's about and geared towards. But again, it's such a huge part of my life. I'm not going to talk about it. But the enemy knows these tactics, and he knows these patterns, and he gets in our head, and he can affect and rewire these emotions. So it's really important, if you are faithful and you are a Christian, to lean on the Lord and pray to him and seek love and seek the Lord through something. And I do this thing now, since doing this, it's helped me so much, especially in relationships and in conversations, because I feel emotions very strongly. I'm a very sensitive person, but I've another thing I've rewired in my thinking is that can be a strength. I used to look at it as such a weakness. I'm so sensitive, I'm so emotional, and I would avoid things that would cause extreme highs and extreme lows because I didn't like feeling out of control of my emotion because it affects me heavily. Like I'm very, very emotional. Or like they're just deep emotions, if that makes sense. I get very passionate, and that's such a blessing and that's such a gift. I'm so passionate. I get excited talking about things. That's why I think I've stayed consistent on social media for so many years, day in and day out, because I am so passionate. But I'm also so emotional that one thing hurts me and it hits me like extra hard. I remember these things. Even in relationships, I love so hard and I love so deep, but that's also scary in case it doesn't work out. But I have had to learn to not fear that negative emotion because one, it's probably not going to be as bad as we think. And two, we have the power to control how we react. And if we let that emotion get the best of us. Anyway, the enemy knows that, and the enemy is going to do everything in its power to hold you from something that's good and true for your life and a part of God's plan because he wants to essentially hurt the Lord. And so if you're doing something to honor the God and give glory to God and be obedient to the Lord, he's going to try and stop you. He's going to get in your head, and he gets in our thoughts so easily. Okay. So be aware. Is this thought coming from the Lord? Is this thought coming from the enemy? Like, why am I having this thought? Why am I having this emotion? We'll get back deeper into that point later on in this episode, but being able to like diagnose an emotion right away is powerful. But what I do personally when I feel an instant emotion, this happens to me a lot in my relationship with Kyler, just because it's an intimate relationship. I feel like emotions and feelings are heightened just because it's a deeper relationship. Like this is a relationship that is nothing compared to a best friend. You know what I'm saying? If you're in a relationship, you know what I'm talking about. And I think that's why I'm so sensitive and I can get so hurt and then I can get so like high at the same time. Like I go on like a love high and then I can be really emotional sometimes. And I'm like, why is this hurting me so bad? It's not that big of a deal. And then I go down a rabbit hole and it can be so avoided and it's just not healthy. But anyway, what was I saying? I just got totally, but when I go through these emotions, if something said, something happens, whatever like the stimulant to an emotion is, whatever the trigger is, and if I have an emotion, I stop before reacting, before saying anything, before even this is what I'm working on, but I need to learn to even pray before I let my body language and my posture and my facial expressions change, because I do that so subconsciously. I don't even notice I do it, but everyone else does. Like I totally wear it on my face. I totally wear it my body language. You can read me like a book. Sometimes I'm hard to read because I'll say one thing, but it's like, oh no, I'm like, no, I'm fine. Nothing's wrong. But then I'm like sulking and I look so like freaked out or stressed or sad or anxious. Like I wear it, but then I never actually admit that I'm feeling that way. So people are like, you're so hard to read. I don't know if y'all are like that. That's something I'm working on. It's hard. But again, hopefully it can help you guys because I'm working on it myself and I've noticed significant changes already. So that's hopefully hopeful for you guys. Anyway, when I feel this emotion, the immediate emotion, the first thing I do, my reaction to that is I pray. And I'm like, Lord, if this is from you, let me feel the emotion. If it's from anything else, remove it, take it away, like take control, God. And I like pray for the Holy Spirit to come in, for discernment, for conviction of the emotion. And it helps me so much, you guys, because it almost removes me from the situation. It removes me from my emotion and it puts God into the mix. And then I cast all my anxieties, I cast all my emotions, I cast all my burdens onto him. He wants us to do that. So that's literally me doing that. And it's so helpful because then it makes things way more, when you remove the emotion, because this is what I'm praying to do. I'm like, Lord, please remove the emotion and just let me look at this black and white logistically, because you don't want to just be walked over. You don't want to be like numb. It's good to feel emotions, but it's really important to learn how to read your emotions and get to like the root of that emotion. Like, why did I react that way? Is this something I can work on? Is this something that they need to work on? Is this something we can work on? Do I need to pray about this more? And sometimes you won't know. And so sometimes I'm praying, I'm like, Lord, please reveal to me like why I'm feeling this emotion. Please bring up these roots. Like, please help me identify where this is coming from so I can fix it. There's so many things you can pray about. But when you just stop and take a second to go to the Lord, it kind of brings you back to like zero. It calms you. It gives you a sense of peace. Again, it releases a lot of stress and anxiety because you cast them on the Lord. And then the Lord will answer your prayer and he'll start to, shake off the dust and reveal whatever you're looking for. And then you have the true reason for your emotion, which then you can actually formulate a legitimate thought based on that. And then your behaviors are going to be more true. And then your relationships are going to be more true. And your consequence will be more true. And I don't think any of that's wrong. If it's a person that shouldn't be in your life and you're getting a negative emotion and you pray about it and the Lord's revealing, like, this isn't someone I sent to you, like, this isn't a good person in your life, stand off, back away. It's okay to not bring that person on as a best friend. Or if it's going to be a toxic relationship and you know this isn't your person, that's a gift. God gives us discernment. That is a gift to be able to go through that process and make a decision, a sound decision, the right decision. But a lot of times we let emotions get in the way, and then it's not, and we don't know what we're doing, and it's confusing, and the enemy wants to confuse us. That's a tactic of his. And it's not healthy to be confused. It's not right. So it's like, God can give you the way, the truth, and the life. Like, he will set your path for you and he will make it clear and evident, but you gotta like ask him to, and you gotta take a second to step back and allow that to happen. Whew, I've been talking. I didn't think I'd be talking this much. We're only on the second point, so I need to get going. But essentially, emotions are a byproduct of the way we think. And assumptions produce emotions. So that's why it's so important to make sure this is like a factual thing. You're getting to the real root, the factual root of this emotion, rather than assuming. Assumptions are so bad because my brain goes a million miles an hour. It used to. It would think of like a spider web and it just branches off into a million things. That's the way my mind works. And when one thing happens, it's so easy to think negatively. And then I start thinking worst case scenario, and I'm like, oh, if it's somebody else, I'm looking like outward rather than looking inward. And that's something else I've had to change. But if something happens and I create an emotion, I'm like, oh God, what are they thinking of me? Why do they think this? Well, because they think this. Do they think this? Oh, because this, then this. And then I just go down a spiral, and it's so toxic and it's so unhealthy. I think a lot of us do that though. And it's fear based and it's anxiety ridden, and it's so toxic and so bad for our minds. So that's why I pray. And that's when I stop myself, because I don't let myself go through that anymore. And I try to remove the assumption and find the fact. Because then emotions produce belief, because whatever the fact is, it's going to create that emotion, whether the emotion's good or bad. Just make sure it's correct. Because that's going to create and produce a belief. And that belief is really powerful because those beliefs produce our actions. So whatever we're believing about something, we're going to act specifically to that belief, in accordance to that belief. So if we believe in it and we believe it to be true, we're going to be doing things that align with that. And that shapes our lives. Our action shapes our lives. Our actions shape our realities. And our actions ultimately produce habits and patterns. So these are ongoing things. This can be in a situation where you're dating a guy, you had a bad experience, and then it's interesting when we continually have these same bad experiences because we don't heal from however we were once hurt, because we habitually do this. Just because one person hurt you, maybe you got cheated on, that's awful, and I'm so sorry, and I pray that you can heal from that and get to the root of that, because going forward, you're going to have trust issues with everyone else, because that's a learned behavior and a pattern that you've gone through with this because of that person. So you have to learn to like end that curse of your mind, essentially. And it's so hard to do. And I'm not saying it's easy. And I don't want you to think I'm like, oh, you just need to do this and it's fine. Like, I've never been in that situation, so I can't necessarily know exactly what it's like, but I've walked alongside people who have been. And I wish I could have told them this now, or told them this then, like what I know now. But that's why I'm telling you guys, because your habits ultimately are like behavioral patterns, and they can follow you for like lifetimes, generations. A lot of people's habits are passed on to their children, and it can be a generational curse, or it can be a beautiful thing. So if you can't do it for yourself, do it for the future, like your future child or your future husband or your future boyfriend. Like, work on that so it doesn't follow you into the new relationship. And if it's something good and positive, praise the Lord for that. That's amazing. That's amazing that you have a good pattern and belief about whatever it is. Anyway, toxic thinking can produce an alternate reality, which in turn distorts reasoning. And again, kind of what I was just saying is that's why it's so important to get to the truth behind the emotion, because like I was explaining the spider web, it's a toxic way of thinking, and it's assumption produce. That's what conversations and just getting to the bottom of things with somebody else, like having a hard, vulnerable conversation is really healthy because it removes the assumptions. It's just factual. You're talking to each other and you're getting to the root of it. You're getting honest feedback. You're giving your honest feelings. And this, I think, clears up a lot of things, because when couples or friends or whomever, like when two people don't communicate, both parties are making assumptions, and both parties are then, forming their beliefs and their thought patterns. And oftentimes it's just because of miscommunication. These things are nothing is really ever what we assume it to be. It's never worst case scenario. It's really not. And a lot of it snowballs too. So when you're not having these conversations, the assumptions are building, and then you're branching off into more spider webs and more spider webs. And then when something else happens, it's validating that belief. And it's just funny because it's such a tug and a pull thing in most relationships. When there's something that, caused an emotion, it affected one person, they start acting different. And then that action is causing an emotional reaction to the other person, and then they start changing their behaviors and their beliefs and their thought patterns and their behaviors and habits, whatever. And then their change is then in turn affecting the other person's change. And then it's just worsening and worsening and worsening, if you are following what I'm saying. It's really toxic, and oh man, it just can spiral out of control. So it's bad, because essentially these toxic thinking patterns can produce alternate realities. Our brains just do this naturally. They just start, your brain wants to validate any reasoning that you have, and then you start imagining all these other scenarios, and you create a literal alternate reality. You create something that is so not even true, but you're putting faces to names, and you're building out this story that could be potential, but it's not. But your brain can't really differentiate what's an alternate reality and what's a true reality. And then that in turn affects your emotions even more, and it can make them more heightened, more confused, you guys. It's it's a dangerous game to play. It really is. With all being said, we're like halfway through this episode, but with all that being said, I want you guys to ask yourself, what do you fixate on? What do you constantly think of? What's always in the back of your head? What's the first thing that pops into your mind when you wake up in the morning? What's the last thing that you think about going to bed? It's probably the same thing. I think we oftentimes go through different seasons and eras of our life that what we fixate on changes. Some examples are your dating life. If you're in a toxic relationship, I'm sure you go to bed stressed about it, and you wake up and you're checking if they texted you. First thing you do. Sometimes when I've been in bad situations with guys, my body will naturally wake me up in the middle of the night, and I'll check my phone to see if I've heard from them. That's how much control this has over me. I will be unconscious, and my body wakes me up thinking about this. That is insane. That's insane. But it's not insane if you're going through that. But it's crazy that I think what's insane is our bodies have the ability to do that. I'm not saying you're insane if you do that. I've done that. But I think relationships are huge. Maybe it's not an intimate relationship, like a boyfriend, girlfriend. Maybe it's a relationship with your family members, your mom or your dad, or a sibling or something. That's one thing that we fixate on, and it controls our thoughts. I know this firsthand just in dating around and after relationships, you guys. I had been in a situationship, and it took a toll on me. It affected me day in and day out, 24/7. My mom, I would tell her everything, so I was at wit's end with this. It was eating me alive. But she was like, if you put half of this energy that you spend on this boy and your thoughts on this boy, think how much you could help your community on social media. Think how much more you could be pouring into yourself. And when she said that, I literally, that was what I cut it off. I'm like, I can't. Because I knew how much I had spent, how much time and energy I had spent on this one person, and it sucked the life out of me. It drained me. It drained me freaking dry. I had nothing else left to give because it was constantly in my mind. It's like when your computer overheats because you have so much going on. That was my mind thinking about this boy and different scenarios and different assumptions, and questioning myself, questioning him. Like, it was so bad. And then it would overheat. And then I had nothing else to give. Your computer then just freezes up, and then it's paralyzed and you can't do anything. And I saw that happening. I was not creative. I wasn't as productive. I was skipping certain things because my mood was affected. My emotions were heightened, and that wasn't me. And I was like, I need for this to come to an end. So I hope I'm speaking into someone right now. If you're in a toxic relationship with somebody, or you're in a situationship that just has a chokehold on you, let it go. I promise you, it will be the biggest blessing in your life. It's so hard to do, but you guys, once you do it, it gets easier. The hardest thing to do is just to make that decision, but then day by day, it goes up from there. It gets easier and it gets easier, and you start to regain your strength, and you see clearer, and you get your confidence back, and your energy's back, and your passions are back. Like, life gets better, okay? That's a huge one that I focused on. That was probably the biggest thing that I fixated on. Another one I know is really common, especially in men, but women too, is success in careers. My boyfriend, this is a huge thing. He's always thinking about work. He's always, what more could I be doing? How could I be doing it better? Where should I be? Who do I network with? Who should I be talking to? Who should be my coach in this? And it can be healthy, but it can be toxic. Like, there's a level where he's like, wow, like, we just went to LA and served in the community to help with like the wildfire relief and aid, and giving back and pouring into other people. We were driving back, and he's like, Chloe, like, that was the first time in like 2 days I haven't thought about work or talked about work. And I'm like, yeah, it was refreshing for me to not have to hear about it. It was refreshing for him to not think about it, because it can suck you dry. And he's like, I feel so recharged. I feel so refreshed. I feel so fulfilled, because he removed that toxic thinking. Obviously, helping others is very fulfilling, and that fills your cup up. But I think a big part of the refreshment that he felt was because he wasn't draining himself for 2 days straight. He recharged himself for 48 hours. Make sure you allot time to recharge. And if you're fixating on something, it needs to come to an end. It does. It really, really does. Another thing that's common is body image. This is, very common with girls who struggle with an eating disorder. I've never been diagnosed, so I don't know exactly the depths of it, but I've definitely had a faulty relationship with food and my body, and being in the industry of fitness and health and wellness. It's ultimately got me to the place I am here today. So I'm like grateful for the highs and the lows of it, but that can be draining. You can wake up and the first thing you do is step on a scale, and then it dictates what you do for the day, how you eat, how you move. That is a literal chokehold on your life. That is it's a chain. It's awful. It's heavy. And I don't wish that upon us. We're back. If you're watching this and the lighting completely changed, just because it's literally like 2 hours later and I went to edit this and realized the monitor on my mic died. So there was no audio for the last like 15 minutes of this episode. And I just recorded Heavenly Chats, and now I'm sitting back down to re-record this. So I'm hoping the brain is firing the way it was earlier, because we were spitting good stuff. We were on a roll. But good thing I have notes here, because I can just kind of hop back into where I was. But I was just saying, the chains that a fixation of something can hold on you it's heavy and it bears a lot of weight, but the freedom that you feel when you can release them and let go of them and change the thought patterns that you have it's unlike anything else. And if you feel so stuck in it, I really highly encourage you to pray for relief, pray for clarity, pray for just the chains to be broke, surrender it to them, and surrender to the Lord, because he will free you from it. That is what he does. That's why he's so good. Is like, he can free us from things that we can't do on our own, but he can. And just ask for mercy and ask for forgiveness if it's something hard and bad, and whatever it is, like, he will get you through it. The next point that I was getting into, and this is so huge because this is why it's so important, to acknowledge what thoughts you're having, because where your attention goes, neural firing flows and neural connections grow. I'm going to read that again because it's a lot, but this is from Dr. Dan Siegel, professor of clinical psychiatry. So this is legit science-based information, and it's where attention goes, neural firing flows and neural connections grow. So you're growing connections within that thought. And when something grows, it gets bigger and it gets stronger and it gets more repetitive in your head. So what we think about, our brains become. What we think about is what we become. And that's like a beautiful thing, but that's also a scary reality, because if we're not thinking something positive, which typically we aren't, studies show that 70% of our thoughts are negative. 7 out of 10 thoughts are negative. So imagine the like headspace in the world that we live in, with such a negative mindset and such a negative perspective. And when we're assuming the worst and we're having these negative assumptions, life tends to go that way, as we have seen and as we've learned. And so imagine if you just changed one thought, how much of an impact that can make on your life, and how much more positive your life could be, and how much more freeing and light it could feel. And imagine that times, you had 3 negative thoughts versus 7. Your life would be completely different. You would be at places you can't even imagine. And it's not light work. It's not easy, but it's possible. And it is simple. It's as simple as, stopping and reflecting and getting to the root of an emotion and praying about it and praying for clarity on, is this emotion true? Is this based on something else? Like, Lord, guide me through this. And then that your reactions and your responses and the relationships and essentially the reality of that is truth, and it's the true way your life is supposed to be. Just be aware of what you're thinking about and zeroing in on, because that thought becomes your identity. Your identity, you guys, that's a huge thing. And so it's like what you're focusing in on becomes your identity. Like I said, dating and success and body image, all of those things become so consuming. It becomes who you are, and it's what you operate in. And like your head is literally where you're at 24/7. So that's why when I'm talking to myself too much, I just turn it to talking to the Lord, because that's like a much safer, healthier conversation to be having. And that's what he wants us to be doing. But one thought produces multiple thoughts, which develops into a mindset. And mindsets are huge. A work hard mindset, a no pain, no gain mind. Like, people attribute mindsets to themselves. Like, they take that on as a part of them. One thought produces multiple thoughts. So it's one belief in something, whether it's good or bad, produces multiple beliefs. And like we know, that produces behaviors and actions and habits. And then habits become an actual mindset. And then you believe it. And that's what you begin to preach. And that's what you begin to actually live by and understand is true. And sometimes it might not be. And sometimes it might be a really hard, dark space to live in. And it doesn't have to be that way. Like, it can be a positive, uplifting mindset and a happy mindset and a cup half full rather than half gone mindset. You have control over that. They gave an example of like a thought pattern. And this is huge, because this will give you guys hopefully relief and hope that you can control thoughts, because whether or not we're going to experience thought patterns of a negative emotion. So say something negative happens, every time we experience a negative emotion, sadness, hurt, fear, anxiety, worry, there's a reasoning because of it. This emotion happened because of reasoning, whatever that may be. You're sad and you're hurt because your boyfriend cheated on you. You're sad and you're hurt because you failed a test. You're sad and hurt because X, Y, and Z. And typically it ends there. And then we just identify that. We're sad and hurt because our boyfriend cheated on us, and that's our reality. And that's who we become. And we live in that reality. And that becomes our mindset of, then that's when the spirals happen. And that's when the spider webs of thoughts happen. And that's when we start, believing all these other untruths and all these other lies that are in our head and all these other beliefs that aren't who we actually are. And we start to question ourselves. And it's a spiral. It's a spiral because we end there. But what I hope you guys will learn to do, and this is what I've begun to do, and this is very positive, because this is how you end something on a positive note. And so I will, to the end of it. So thought pattern of a negative emotion, that's going to happen. That's life, because of the reasoning. People are people. We're not perfect. Something's going to happen. Something's going to cause a negative emotion. But because of that reasoning, I will. So I will. So my boyfriend cheated on me, and X, Y, and Z, I'm very sad. He cheated on me because probably not even you problem, probably a him problem. So I will. So I will break up with him. And you know what? From there, I will pour more into my passion of the gym. I will pour more into my passion of knitting's all over my TikTok. That's just a thing I'm thinking of. But it gives you more time. So I will call up a friend once a week and go grab lunch instead of going to a dinner date with him like we normally do. So I will. And there's so many opportunities you now have to take back your emotion, take back your power, take back your headspace, and spin it into a positive. And that's how you control your life, because you can't control the negative emotions. You can't control what other people do to you. That's just part of life, unfortunately. But what you can control is what you'll do after and how you'll react. So I will pray. That's what I always do. I pray, and then I'm obedient to what God sends me to do and the path that he gives me and the thoughts and just all of the awareness that he provides and all of the clarity he provides. And try that, because again, and I have been in both positions, and I have fallen victim to the bad emotion and the reasoning. And then you take it on yourself and you spiral and you get worse and worse and worse. But if you do that and then you decide to take action against it and do something good for it to end it off a good note, you're going to be so much happier in the end. So that's everything that I have. I know this is a very packed episode, but I think it's so important. And I just hope that this can help you guys, because I know our minds are so powerful. That's what I've been saying this entire time. Truly, how we think shapes our lives. And I want you guys to be able to shape and mold your life in the most beautiful way possible. And I'm always going to say prayer and allow the Lord to shape, but you still have to take action, and you can take control of your thoughts, because we have the power within us to do that. And I just don't want you guys to like live in a dark spot. I don't want you to continue to go through what you're struggling through. Even if you're not struggling, I hope this gave you some insight on how to help somebody who is, because again, we're humans and stuff happens and life happens. So I hope this prepares you for that. It prepares you for what's to come. It helps, heal you maybe in a sense. It's helping you whatever you're going through now. But I just love you guys so much. And I am just so excited. I really, really highly encourage you guys to read this book. It has changed my life. And I just want you guys to view the world in an optimistic lens and see the beauty in life, and to take control and not feel like you don't have control over your life and your reality. And you have the power to do that. And again, it's not easy, but it's simple to do. So I will, and when you start feeling those negative emotions, those negative thoughts, dissect, reflect, dig deep, and ask yourself, why do I have that? What do I need to heal to avoid that negative emotion? Is that normal? Is that how I should be feeling? And when you don't know those answers, pray, because he will give you the answer. But ultimately, that is everything. I want to thank you guys so much for listening every single week. It means the world to me. This is truly my passion, like to talk to you guys and share everything I'm learning, because it improves my life, and I hope it can improve yours. But until next week, I'll see you in the next episode. Bye, guys.